Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Charles Blaine. This is Michael Searle, and that is Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin. Oh, there we go. It's Brad Swale with Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin. Welcome, welcome. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
I'm doing good. I'm hyped up on some Sudafed right now. I've had 3 kids sick all week, and it's finally getting to me. So
that means we're going to be in for a wild show. We don't know what Brad we're getting today, huh?
You never know what Brad you're getting, and today's going to be extra crazy. So you're welcome. I love this is from Tucker. You know, the Tucker Putin. Everyone's talking about it, right? Tucker and Putin. He interviewed our president, Charles's president, really, and the first 30 minutes. We'll talk about this, I'm sure, more. But I just want to explain this face. This is the first 30 minutes where Putin's talking about history, and Tucker's just like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Well, that's Tucker's face all the time, but yes. But I thought that was quite interesting. I learned a lot about Russian history that I had no idea about previously. So yeah, worth the first 30 minutes. All right, so we're in for a fun show today. We've got a great guest. We're going to roll that video in a second. But if it's your first time tuning in, make sure you like, share this, share it across social media, everywhere you can find. We'll say that again at the end, but follow us on Twitter, MSearleATX, Brad Swale, Charles Blaine. And now we're going to kick off this video and then just welcome in our guest.
I'm Adam Loewy. I became a lawyer to help people who have suffered life-altering injuries, whether from a car crash, a motorcycle accident, or even dog attacks. I help people get the medical care they need, and I protect them from getting cheated by an insurance company. For 20 years, I've built a firm right here in Austin to protect our local families. If you or a loved one have been injured, I'm ready to help you.
Adam Loewy, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's nice to meet you. This is my first time meeting you. These guys know you, but welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Adam, all right. Just real quick before we start, we just played, so everyone knows, we just played your commercial. I'm not sure how much you pay to have that commercial run on local TV, but this is YouTube. It's international. So it's going to be a little pricier. You okay with that?
Well, hopefully it'll have a better return than local TV is.
Okay, well, so this is Adam Loewy, one of Austin's top personal injury lawyers, political commentator, spicy tweeter, apparently playground owner, because I was looking at your Twitter and I saw that as well. And I hope you don't mind me mentioning this because I saw you tweeted out an hour ago. Today is 11 years of sobriety. Is that correct?
Yep.
Oh, shit. Congratulations, dude.
Thank you so much. True blessing. Best decision of my life. And so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we got you on a good day then. That's exciting. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, but since Brad kind of kicked it off with his background, I guess we could just go ahead and jump into the topic of the day that everyone's talking about. Well, I don't know if everybody's talking about Putin and Carlson or if they're talking about Biden's blunders yesterday, one of the two. So, Adam, since you're the guest, which one do you want to start on?
Well, like I said before the show started, it's just kind of stunning to think what the last 24 hours of news has been. I mean, it starts with the Supreme Court hearing, which no one's currently talking about, but you had the hearing about whether the GOP nominee was going to be removed from the Colorado ballot. And the hearing went so bad for Colorado that you even had my mother-in-law, who hates Trump with the passion of 6,000 suns. She was texting me saying, Trump's going to win this hearing. I mean, that's how bad it was. And she's not a lawyer. So that's like old news at this point because of all the other craziness that went after that. So, to me, what's interesting, and I want to bring this up first because Michael's on this. Michael and I have a bet. I forgot the exact terms, but the bet is basically, will Biden be the nominee? And we have a date. When's the date, Michael?
November.
Is it November? Okay. So will Biden be the nominee of the Democrats in November? I said, yes, he will. Michael, 6 months ago, I think said, no, he will not. I'm doubling down on that even after yesterday. I think he will be the nominee. I don't buy these theories that he's got handlers or Obama or whoever who are going to pull the rug on him and get someone else in there. So I just would first say, I think the press conference last night was a complete debacle, but it just seemed to me he's just an angry old man. I didn't interpret it as he's this demented human being. He's not well. He's not sharp like our youngest here, but I do think that he is competent enough to win re-election.
So
what are you
hold on.
talking about, Adam? 1 second. Well, the bet was almost 18 months ago because I went back and looked at our text messages. So it goes back a ways. The special prosecutor assigned by the Department of Justice to review his documents cases just said he's not competent to stand trial, let alone run the country. There's no way he's going to be the nominee. No way.
But listen, there's no scenario in which right now you can articulate without put aside that there's a massive health issue. Okay. He has a heart attack. He has, stomach cancer or whatever. Put that aside. The Biden of today is as healthy as he is today, which means he's old and he's not all there mentally, but he's nothing other bad happens. You can't articulate a scenario without resorting to conspiracy theories to explain how he won't be the nominee. Please try to do that.
True. I accept
What if he
that.
just chooses not to run? I mean, what if he just says at this point that he cannot do it? I'm split on his capabilities at this point. I mean, in the same breath that he was saying that he's competent and he can remember things like the date of the death of his son, is like 3 lines later when he's like the president, Sisi, the president of Mexico. And I know that those things happen. Like they happen to anybody, whether you're young, whether you're old, but they seem to happen to him more regularly than they happen to a lot of people. And they seem to happen more regularly today than they did when he took office or when he was running for office.
They do not happen to everybody.
It happens to me. I mean, I do things like
you're
that.
You're not the president of the United States, so it doesn't matter if it happens to you. Who cares if Charles, mixes up me and Michael? Who cares? No big deal. Whatever. But if you're the president, that matters. Right? You have as they always say, you have the finger on the nuclear button.
It does, but Trump has done similar things of getting things mixed up. I mean, that's the problem here. You've got 2 old men running for president right now.
You know who's young?
To your point, Charles, this is my theory on it. Joe Biden was a United States senator at age 29, which is like crazy to think about. 29, he was in the Senate. His entire life has been this moment. He ran for president in the 80s. He ran for president in the 2000s. He finally is president. The idea that he's going to be like, you know what? I just can't do this right now. I've decided to resign. It's not happening. It will not happen. Jill will not get him to do it. His handlers, the press secretary, that woman everybody likes attacking, she's not going to get him to do it. He's going to say, I'm president. I've got the delegates. I'm the nominee. So if somebody can tell me a theory that makes sense where that's not the case, I'll listen. But that's what I think currently will happen.
Well, now this is kind of making me a little excited, right? I love that Adam's on here, just spitting fire, spitting truth, right? As the kids say, no cap, for real, on God. And I gotta ask you, Adam, is it gonna be Michelle Obama? Do you think? Ever gonna run? Is she ever going to run? Just
Brad's dying.
Is 60 years old.
Michelle Obama is 60 years old?
She's 60 years old.
What?
Yeah. She doesn't look a day over 40.
Right.
It's true.
She's worth what? $50 million right now? She lived in that White House for 8 years, and she has never wanted political office. She's not Hillary, who we know from Yale Law wanted to be president. Okay. So this isn't a Hillary story where she was like, I'm going to be the senator from New York. I'm going to be Secretary of State. Michelle has never said any of that. So again, these Twitter right-wing conspiracies are bananas. Like, why would, if you're flying around in a private jet worth $50 million, having been in the White House, why would you want to go be the president? The job stinks. I mean, the job's not fun.
See, here's where I half agree with you. I do give into the idea that there's a chance that they might try to push her to run because she could beat Trump. But I've said on this before, and Brad disagreed with me, that why would she want to be president? She did that she was president for 8 years, but she was in the White House for 8 years, and recognize how constraining that is, not being able to like let a window down when you drive down the street. Who would want to go back into something like that? That would be my only reason for her not doing it. But I do. What's that?
She can't do that now. She doesn't roll. I mean,
she could probably crack it at least a little bit. Like she could like put her finger out there. I mean, she could do more than she could do when she was first lady. I read something or watched her in an interview, and she said that I can't remember what decision it was from the Supreme Court, but they were very excited about it. She wanted to go out and celebrate with everybody. They had to like sneak out past security and White House guards and all that to get out with, I think it was with Sasha. And they only got out there for like 5 minutes before they got in trouble and had to go back in. So who would want to live a life like that unless she felt there was a greater good to serve the party, serve the country, which I do think there's that case to be made there. But I think just in terms of ambition, I don't see her wanting.
Can I ask 2 questions, Adam? I'm trying to contain my conspiracy mind and stay in the realm of reality. But
let it out.
Question 1 is, given the current trajectory, is Trump likely to win in your mind against Biden?
As of today, if the election was held on Tuesday, I think Trump wins in a close election.
I agree. The second question, is Trump an existential threat in the minds of the Democrat machine or leadership or whatever you want to call it? Is he an existential threat?
I would actually say no at this point. I think that we are in year 9 of Trump. This is the 9th year of Trump. 2015, this started. I think the crazy has been baked in. I think the media is tired of him. You never see him covered anymore. The speeches, which I know they say, well, we can't elevate him. They're tired of it. It's like, it's the same song and dance. So I think that the Democrats, the powers that be, do not want him to win. But I don't think it's the level of fear that people had in 2016.
Okay. Well, if that's true, then I can't get to my next point. But I still think that he's an existential threat. I see them bringing charges, many of them very weak. I see them taking him off the ballot in states, which is drastic. And I see them doing a lot of things to try to prevent him from being the next president. Getting Joe Biden out of the race, here I'm going to go into the conspiracies, finding a way to get Joe Biden out of the race and replace him with a candidate that could win, such as Michelle Obama, doesn't seem like a stretch removing him from the ballot.
How does that happen right now?
Health.
How does what happen? Removing Biden?
Yeah, technically,
Biden is currently winning primaries and getting delegates.
Against who, though?
It depends on the time. It depends on the timing. They can't do it amidst the primary.
This is why the conspiracy theory falls apart. He won the South Carolina primary. You're going to say, what's that? And I'm going to say, yes, the media didn't cover it, but there was actually a primary there. He's going to win next week's primary, Nevada or whatever it is. So he's going to have delegates going into the convention. So the idea that the chair of the DNC or someone can be like, oh, hold on, we've got to put Michelle here. That's not how it works. It's going to come down to Biden saying, I want to be gone. I want to resign for the good of the party. And then it will be, I mean, people say Michelle Obama. I mean, Kamala will want it. Newsom will want it. It will be a complete circus.
Yeah, but Kamal, yeah, I agree. But in this scenario, if he dropped out, decided he couldn't run, similar to LBJ, after the convention, then the DNC decides who the nominee is going to be. There's not a yeah. If he drops out after the convention, the DNC picks a committee of, I don't know, 10 to 20 people that chooses the nominee.
Right.
Why does that make sense, right? Because if you have a nominee who drops out, then what do you do? Yeah. And I know, and that's similar to local elections in a sense, because I know we had a commissioner die when he was the nominee, and then it was the party came together and precinct chairs picked his replacement. So I guess that could be an opportunity there.
But great thing here, we're going to find out. We can speculate all we want. My money's still on Biden not being the nominee, and we're going to find out.
How much money do you have going?
What's that?
How much money do you have going?
$100.
$100. Come on, Michael. Ugh.
I will say it's interesting because, you know, my mom, who's both my parents are South Carolina voters, and she's a Democrat, lifelong Democrat, is very, very disappointed with this election because she has no one to vote for. And she can't even bring herself to vote for Nikki Haley. She was like tempted to, but she's like, I don't like that lady. She seems weak. And that was based off of, I think, the first debate. So she's just kind of like, she didn't vote in the Democratic primary. She's not going to vote in the South Carolina Republican primary. No idea who she's going to vote for in November. And I feel like a lot of Democrats feel that way. I could be mistaken, but it seems to be the case.
I think you're right. I mean, I think it's the worst election of my lifetime. I mean, I don't think there's one remotely close. I mean, I think that 2020 was bad, but it was a referendum on whether you wanted 4 more years of Trump. But this thing is like a referendum on 2 terrible choices. So I think the voting turnout will be down. I don't know anyone who's really excited about Biden. You're excited about him because you want policies to be in place. But no one's like, oh, wow, we have Joe Biden again as president, and I think that affects things. People like us follow this closely, but if you are just casually following politics and your grocery bill's up and you hate Trump and Biden sold you a bill of goods, so to speak, you're not going to vote. And so I think that what your mother is feeling is on point to a lot of this country. And so I think that look, I'm very open to the idea there's going to be a big wild card here. My prediction, which I put about a month ago on Twitter, is there will be a major health issue for one of them. And that will change things. But on his own, Biden just saying, nah, I'm done. No way. I just think
is that a natural health issue or is it an induced health issue?
I mean, it'll be like the Ken Lay health issue. Remember that? The run guy? He died of a heart attack right before he was going to go to jail. You
never know. I mean, I'm not wishing that upon anybody, but sometimes accidents are forced upon you.
It happens. But like if we wake up tomorrow and Donald Trump has a massive heart attack and dies, would you be that surprised? He's not the healthiest guy. He's not that Brad Swale carnivore diet going here.
Right.
So I think at the end of the day, Father Time has to kind of play a role here at some point, and maybe he does with Biden. We'll see.
What's wrong with conspiracy theories? Why do we got to leave those at the door? Right? I mean,
I'll tell you what's wrong with them. I think some of them are true. I think that there's no doubt. There's a great book by Ryan Holiday about the Hulk Hogan lawsuit. And he starts the book by talking about this exact issue, that everyone disparages conspiracy theories, but many times they're true. Like there is conspiracies. My problem with political conspiracy theories is we know the people who work in the government at high levels are mostly idiots. And so this idea that like they're so brilliant in what they're going to pull off here and like the handlers and this and that, like you saw what Trump did when he was in the White House. He couldn't keep people in the job for longer than 2 weeks. So the idea that like there's all these brilliant people manipulating things, I'm just always very skeptical of.
Okay.
I agree. They are idiots. So both on state, local, and federal level. So yeah, I agree. And shout out to Ryan Holiday because I love Ryan Holiday. But speaking of health, wellness, and mental acuity, how about we transition to the Biden? I mean, not to the Biden, to the Putin and Tucker Carlson interview. Because one thing I will say, regardless of the content of the interview, I'll say that when you look at U.S. politicians and when they sit down for long form interviews, like hour plus, the way that he did, there's a lot of kind of misspeaking and there's a lot of, I didn't mean this, I didn't mean that. You did not see that very much in last night's interview. It was like every word was said with intention. It was placed with intention. There was really no backtracking on a lot of things. And I thought that was quite interesting. Obviously, the whole interview was very intentional for him trying to get a message out there. But want to get your guys' takes on that. What do you guys think? Whoever, I don't know if you guys watched the whole thing or at least seen clips, but generally, what are your takes?
Well, I think that it made you sympathetic to Vladimir Putin.
Gee, thanks.
I mean, I think that the first 30 minutes of him talking about the history of stuff was, it was boring. I don't know, whatever. I guess I just sort of skipped over that. Thank you, Tucker Carlson, for warning us about that before playing it, which maybe he did. I think maybe he was talking a little bit of shit about the interview about Putin to sort of throw off people saying that he was doing this because he's a Putin stooge or whatever. And this way he has plausible deniability. Look, I didn't like that either. Right. But it was, it was interesting, right? I don't believe they're politicians. Politicians lie. First principle of politics: everyone's lying, right? And this is about war, so they're lying doubly hard. I think there's some truth to it, certainly grains of it, but I thought it was. I think it's kind of cool they did it, right?
Well, let me frame the question like this, and Adam, I'd be curious your take on this. Do you think more harm or good came out of it, and do you think this was an instance of maybe Tucker using his platform and then Vladimir Putin taking advantage of it in a negative light, or do you think it was beneficial kind of having had this conversation and putting it out in the open?
I thought it was great. And I was arguing with people on Twitter before it when people are like, you shouldn't give an interview to someone like this. I mean, he's the leader of a country with the most nuclear weapons in the world. He's a major player politically, et cetera, et cetera. So, yes, I think the interview should have happened. I watched a good deal of it. And the first thing I was struck by, as most were, is that this guy can be referencing things from the 1200s, and our president can't remember when his son died. So it's currently we're not in a good situation leadership-wise in this country. And even if it was Trump, I'd feel the same way. And so I think it was fascinating to see a leader who you kind of only read about in history books. It reminded me of, James Polk or Sam Houston from the 1800s talking about their visions of the land and the West and what needs to happen. And, look, none of us are Ukrainian experts or Russian experts, so there's no way to evaluate whether what he's saying is true, but he believes what he's saying. So I thought the interview was fantastic, but I think he also is a horrible guy. I mean, he's a dictator. He's a killer. I think, I don't feel threatened by him. I don't think Americans should feel threatened by him, but I think we need to be careful dealing with him.
Yeah, I've watched the whole thing. Like, this dude is a former KGB agent and like one of the most powerful political leaders in the world. And he has an agenda. So the whole time I'm watching it, I'm trying to figure out exactly what it was. And I didn't find I liked it. It was hard to get through. I didn't find it super informative, I guess. Because if you're like reading the history of NATO and Russia outside of the mainstream media's account of it, like, you knew about what happened in 2008, you knew about what happened in 2014 and kind of his red lines, as he said, that have been crossed. We know about those things. But what stood out to me most in his analysis was how he perceived or wanted to give the impression of how global power is changing and the US is descending and this BRICS alliance is ascending. He kind of gave the impression to me, at least, that this was like common knowledge. And I don't know if you asked our leaders that they would agree with that. That was the first thing. And the second thing was his criticism of the U.S. using the U.S. dollar against him in this war, and that it was a strategic blunder. He really, I thought, made a pretty solid point there that as a result of that, his partnership with China has only grown and made their economy stronger. And we're over here dealing with inflation and $33 trillion in debt.
Yeah, I mean, I watched most of it except for the last 7 minutes because I got on this. But what I thought was I got a sense that he kept trying to kind of drop these, I wouldn't call them Easter eggs, but these like little nuggets to maybe undermine U.S. credibility to its own citizens, like talking about the dollar, the part where it's like, well, why would they do that to their own taxpayers, or why are they spending money in Ukraine? Or there was another part where, with the Nordic Stream thing, which, I mean, very well, CIA could have blown that thing up, probably did, who knows? But like, he kept dropping these nuggets, which in my opinion was his attempt to kind of signal to people in the US that you should be questioning your government more, which we do, some of us do more than others. But that's what I was getting from it more than anything. I mean, I thought the whole Russian history at the beginning was pretty interesting. I wanted him to talk a bit more about Anastasia and whether or not she survived, because I mean, that's been a story for like past 100 years. Is Anastasia out there? Who knows? But he didn't talk about that. So, but I thought it was interesting. I don't know what Tucker's, when he went into it, what his intention to get out of it was, and I don't know if he got that, because I don't know what it was. I don't know what he set out to really get, whether it was just to give him a platform to say what he wanted, whether it was to push back. I didn't see a ton of pushing back. I would have, liked to see a little bit tussling more, the way that he used to do with U.S. politicians on his show. But again, you're in Russia, so you probably don't want to do that.
I think he did a decent job pushing back. He asked about, why not? Are you happy with the territory that you have now, right? And why don't you call Biden? Why haven't you talked to him? Call him up. have that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's pretty good pushback.
It's fair. But I mean, he used to be more aggressive with people in the US. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
No, I think that I think it was good. And I also will just say I think he knew his place in the sense that he doesn't know the history of Russia and Ukraine and that whole area. And what you have in the United States is you have all these people, and this is how this war has been sold to us, of like, poor little Ukraine is here, Russia is invading to get it back, and it's this very kind of elementary school story, when in reality it is thousands of years of history. And like the idea that like that doesn't matter is nonsense. And so that's what I thought was interesting about Putin, of when he's explaining it, and people online are just like shocked that he's going through all this history. And we're just so spoiled in America that all of our land is ours and no one doubts it anymore. But that's not always been the case. And so I thought the interview was great. And it reminded me a lot actually of when Trump went to go to North Korea and everyone freaked out about that. And I just don't understand these people that are like, we shouldn't go talk to people that are enemies. To me, if you don't talk to the enemy, they're always going to be the enemy. I'm not saying this is going to change the course of history, but I think it's important to understand where these people are coming from.
I agree on the history part. And it kind of caught me when Tucker kept like not interrupting, but he would say something and then Putin would be like, well, it doesn't seem like you care. And he's like, well, no, I just don't understand how this is relevant. But it was relevant because he's painting kind of a broader picture, a mosaic of how they got to this point and why he feels the way that he does. And so I thought it added a lot of context. I certainly got confused at points just because, you're going back to the 1200s. There was one point when Tucker was like, what year are we talking about? And he's like the 13th century. I'm like, geez, this is crazy. So it lost me a little bit. My eyes glazed over, but I kept trying to pay attention because I did think it was really interesting. And I learned a lot about kind of the overall conflict and Russia's perspective on it. So.
Can I play a quick clip of it?
Go for it.
Where it's maybe my favorite part of the interview. And I think
entire Parliament of Canada and applauded this man. How can this be imagined? The president of Ukraine himself, by the way, is a Jew by nationality.
Really, my question is, what do you do about it? I mean, Hitler's been dead for 80 years. Nazi Germany no longer exists. And so, true. And so I think what you're saying is you want to extinguish or at least control Ukrainian nationalism. But how? How do you do that?
Послушайте меня. Ваш вопрос очень тонкий.
Listen to me. Your question is very subtle, and I can tell you what I think. Do not take offense.
Of course.
look how giddy he gets.
Он очень противный.
This question appears to be subtle.
Look
It
how happy he
is
is.
quite pesky.
Look at that.
Значит,
You say Hitler has been dead for so many years.
It was great. That was my favorite part of the
That
whole.
was your favorite part.
I mean, just how happy Tucker gets, just like smitten that he's talking to Putin, and Putin's like schooling him.
Called him pesky.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought it was interesting. I would advise people who haven't watched it to go watch it. I think you learn something, you take something from it. You might hate it, but it's certainly worth a watch. I think that was probably the first time that and maybe I have, but I think it was the first time I've ever heard Putin's voice. I don't know that I've really ever heard him. Now, obviously, the guy who was translating was not Putin, but I don't think I've ever really heard him talk before. So that was interesting.
So that part, which I thought was interesting, Putin had just got done explaining, he's trying to eradicate neo-Nazism in Ukraine, and I think it's pretty established that there is neo-Nazism in Ukraine, and they have statues to these former Nazis and everything like that. And that I don't know that I buy it that that's a priority of Putin. I don't really know why that would be a priority of his. That seemed like a unbelievable answer.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
He was
I found that
signaling.
whole part weird. Yeah.
He was signaling. I think that's the thing. It's this undercurrent that kind of like a reverse dog whistle, I guess. I don't know to who, but there were people out there that he was signaling to. I don't know why else you would come forward with something like that, because it's I wouldn't say demonstrably false, but it's I don't believe it, and I feel like most people probably don't. So I don't know. I feel like signaling somebody.
How many people do you think watched that thing?
Well, I mean, the
100
views
million?
it's up to 122 million views on Twitter, but we all know that doesn't mean that people watched it all the way through. They could just maybe press play for a few seconds or saw it.
And it's on YouTube and his website. So, I mean, Lord knows.
Shall we move on?
Yes. So, Adam, next thing we want to talk to you about are primary elections, which we're just
wait. Y'all want to change? Just we can get to that for sure. Do y'all want to do like just a little bit of potpourri?
What's that?
Yeah,
what's potpourri?
I mean, I know what like real potpourri is. I don't know.
Well, just we're talking about politics and all this, like just something to clear the air a little bit.
Okay.
No,
yeah, sure. Let's do it. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I wanted to ask. Well, I think Michael also wanted to ask. Michael, do you want to ask it or do you want me to ask it?
What do you think of aliens?
Not the illegals at the border, Adam. We're talking about from space or other dimensions.
Or not.
I don't think much. Whenever Rogan gets into alien talk, I can't. I shut off.
You don't believe they exist?
I listen to the whistleblower one, the guy who went before Congress or whatever, and I got through 10 minutes. I don't believe
Michael's having a really hard time containing his rage right now.
The veins popping out his neck. You can see it. Wait, you really don't think they exist?
I mean, I'm humble enough to say that I think we don't know mostly about what's going on in the universe, but do I think that they're flying down here and, checking us out? No.
Michael, the floor is yours, because as I've learned on this show, they don't necessarily fly. They may be here with us. Aliens are our friends from around the corner. So, Michael, go ahead, tell us, please.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about knowledge is you attain it over time, and you don't have it all when you're born. So Adam's on this journey. He's going to learn first that Joe Biden's not going to be the nominee, and then at a later date, when they come down or whatever, come in from another dimension and show themselves to us, Adam will learn that they're real then. I can't force him. I could argue all I want with why I think they're real, but it's not going to convince him. He has to follow his own journey.
It's a walk we all must take at one point or another. What I've learned that they might not just be from outer space. They could be here with us in a different plane that we just haven't seen. They could be octopuses. I don't know. Octopi. It could be octopi. I think that's one theory. Another theory is I think they live at the bottom of the ocean. I don't know. There's a lot of theories. Then the other theory is that they're in the Miami Mall. So
that's Michael's favorite theory. They're in the Miami Mall. What was the next topic? Adam doesn't believe in aliens, so I don't know that Michael's ever going to invite him back on the show. Which let
me quickly tell you a better conspiracy theory that I actually believe in, and that is the year we are in is not correct. Have you heard that theory?
No.
So the year is 2024, which is based on the Gregorian calendar, and of course it's tied. Is it to Christ's birth or Christ's death? Whenever the zero started. But I read a thing that said that in the Middle Ages, in the Dark Ages, the construction of time wasn't correct, and you had kings that would proclaim that I was the king of Bavaria or whatever the country was for 35 years, and they weren't correct, but they would claim more. And during that, it's difficult to determine that this is the exact time. Does that make sense? So it's not 2024. It's some other year. That makes more sense to me than aliens.
Well, what year could it be, though? I mean, it's fine. I'm open to the idea. People make mistakes, right? They forget when
they're assume that humans collectively have determined that every 12 months is a year, and that we were doing that. Nowadays, we all collectively agree, right? Because time's a social construct. We all agree that time is 1037, okay? But in 808, in the middle of Europe, how did they fully remember what the year was going to be? The sun? Did they all have agreement if someone's in Bavaria versus someone in Britain? They all had agreed it was the exact same year? That's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, and I think it's interesting because even today, and I don't know how strict this rule is, but in Ethiopia, they operate on a 13-month calendar year. And so apparently they're like 7 years behind in year numbers. And so, and I don't know how strict they use that inside the country, but it's a thing. And so I I'm not surprised if that's the case. That's very interesting. I never heard that theory, but it only took me 35 seconds to believe it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sold.
Do you not? Like, does it not sound like it could be reasonable?
No, I mean, of course, it sounds totally reasonable. Absolutely. And I think that there's a good chance that it might be purposeful. So there you go.
That's now you're going down the right path.
So it might be 1999. Who knows?
Much different year than that. If only it was 99. When we all just had, there was no cell phones. It was just, we didn't do this crap. What was the next topic?
Want to talk about primaries and Adam's support in state races. I don't know which ones you guys are interested in him talking about. I'm definitely interested in your support of Sean Theory just being here in Houston. I mean, I'm a fan of hers, so I'm not critical at all. But it seems as though you are supporting her very heavily. I would like to.
Yeah, it's my biggest play of the cycle, 25,000. I'm so excited to support her. And the major reason I'm supporting her is I do not think that there should be a litmus test on that trans vote. I thought that is just batshit crazy. That's why she has this very formidable primary challenger. She voted with the Republicans on the bill to make it illegal for trans treatment in Texas below 18. My personal view of that issue is I think the age limit could have been 17, could have been 16 maybe, but I think no age limit is insane. When you read about some of this stuff, whether it's the surgeries, which I know a lot of people argue it's past the age 18, although there's other states that allow it before, or even puberty blockers. I think you're making irreversible changes to a young body. And I think that there's a serious issue of consent when it comes to children, right? A child cannot get a tattoo, cannot drink, cannot hire me as a lawyer. If a 16-year-old calls me, I can't sign them up. I have to sign up with their parent. If I'm representing them in a car crash case and the 16-year-old calls me and says, do this or that, I can't listen to it. I have to go through the parent. So it's a very long way of saying I think that she's being very unfairly targeted for that. So that's what we're doing. So it's me versus the woke mob and Beto O'Rourke in Houston. Big showdown. It's going to be a very close race.
Well, and I think what's interesting about Sean is if people had actually, so there's a subsect of people who are very upset about it generally because they really believe in this issue and that. But I feel like everybody else just piled on, because if you sit there and actually listen to the speech that she gave on the floor, you know that she didn't vote that way because she doesn't like trans people, or she doesn't like, that's not the reason. Like, she was very thoughtful in her approach to coming to that conclusion. It was very passionate. She talked about her own child. Like, there was a lot that went into it, and it was very evident from her speech. And so it seems like a lot of these people are just piling on for the sake of piling on because she didn't fall in line with what the Democrats are supposed to do. But I thought it was amazing. I mean, you don't see backbone like that every day on either side. So I thought it was really amazing to see.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a close race. We'll see what happens, but yeah. So the primary season, I think, is interesting. I've enjoyed following it on the right. I enjoy the right a lot more than the left these days. But as Scott Braddock once told me, you like watching another family have a food fight as opposed to yours. I think that's probably true. And so I think that with Michael's old boss making some good news, I was about to tweet that Ellen was in trouble in that race about 2 weeks ago. I'm glad I didn't, because I would look really stupid after the last 24 hours. But, does Michael feel good about the Ellen race now?
Yeah, it's a shit show, but no, she's fine.
Are y'all talking about the Kyle Biederman, like saying that Abbott endorsed him when he didn't and all this other stuff?
Well, that was like the least.
NRA, he did some speech on the floor about, keeping Brian Slayton after he got his intern drunk and had sex with it. Like, just indefensible position. And they're sending the most ridiculous stuff in her district. It's sloppy, if you ask me. But no, I think Ellen's fine. I think there are some other races that are more interesting than Ellen's.
You think Dave Phelan is in trouble?
We gave him we talked about it last time. I think it's closer than people think.
Prior to the Trump endorsement, I probably would have said no. I mean, I think it would have still been a race, but I don't think it would have been trouble. But I think after that Trump endorsement, I mean, now they're running those ads like with Trump and David's face next to each other. I would assume I haven't heard, but I would assume Trump is going to do something in or around the area. That's kind of Trump country. So I mean, I would be worried if I was running against him with Trump's endorsement.
I guess the Texas Scorecard has a podcast. I'm not going to plug it, not because I don't want people to watch it, because I don't know. Oh, what is going on? I'm looking at Texas Scorecard, and who do I see?
Oh, me? I did it. Yes. On what, housing?
I mean, if it's about housing, I'm definitely not going to watch it. I'd rather not be. But I saw a clip from their podcast. I forget the name of the. Here it is. His name is Luke Macias.
Luke Macias.
Luke Macias. Look at you guys. You know who he is. He's saying that everyone in Orange County is talking about this endorsement. Everyone is talking about it.
But that's Scorecard. Luke Macias. How do you not know Luke? Luke is very active.
I don't know, but I think it's so impossible that everyone is talking about it.
Well, they're the ones who are pushing this.
I would think, if you think about it, though, David was the chair of the Orange County Republican Party, and Trump endorsed the opponent to their state rep. So I wouldn't be surprised if everybody involved in politics in Orange County was talking about it. Now, everybody, sure not, but everybody involved in politics, I think so. We're talking about it in Harris County, so I would think that it would make news there.
I mean, my view of it, I'm friends with his political team who are running the campaign, and Murphy Nasica. You know, they don't seem that worried about it yet, but obviously they're not taking it for granted. I just get back to the idea of, you're a Republican voter, you have voted for him 4 times. The Phelan name in Beaumont is very big. His great-great-grandfather was involved with Spindletop. So we're talking like Texas royalty. And more importantly, he's the Speaker of the House. There's never been a Speaker of the House from Southeast Texas. So if you're some older woman there who's Republican and, again, is not on Twitter 24/7, but just follows it somewhat, are you really voting out the Speaker of the House who has done good things for your district? That's why I think he's going to win by 15, 20 points.
Do you think, though, that and I don't know what Spindletop is because I'm from New Jersey, but do you think that connection to him and his family is stronger than today's Republican Party's loyalty to Trump?
I think the loyalty to Trump's completely overblown. I mean, we all know the races Trump has lost for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't think it's a guarantee that Trump endorses that people win. He loses races all the time. So I don't think that. And I also think that Covey guy is kind of an idiot. And so, I mean, I just don't. I mean, I think Phelan is a very successful guy. I think he has a very known name down there. And again, I don't think it's ever happened where the Speaker of the Texas House is voted out by their district. I mean, that would be national news. I mean, that's who was it nationally? Was it Cantor? Was he the Speaker or the leader who was voted out?
I think the leader. Right. Yeah. By David Bratt.
That was Tea Party, but he was like a guy that lived in DC, and I don't know. So I think that the Paxton stuff's totally overblown. I mean, I've talked to Republican and Democratic friends who are knocking doors, who are members of the House, and they say no one's bringing up the Paxton stuff right now.
So
more like you had to do kind of thing.
So what other races are you watching or that are of interest to you?
Did he freeze?
Oh, I think he did. So Brad, what other races until Adam gets back? What other races?
I'm just gonna say while Adam's frozen, I don't know. Is the Paxton thing overblown? Maybe, but the bar is so low. Jared Patterson was on a podcast recently, Y'all-itics, and he was talking. He's like, "Yeah, we beat them 37-0 last cycle. They're not going to get the Macias crowd.
Oh, I see.
They aren't gonna shut it out this cycle. So if the Paxton wing gets 4 or 5 victories, that's going to be seen as a success, and it's going to be moving the needle in a certain direction because everyone's expecting them to get their butts kicked, and I think there's a little bit different energy this cycle.
I think there's one election that Adam is paying attention to that's not on the state level. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
You're asking me. I don't know what it is.
Well, you know, we're talking about Trump endorsements. What if Trump came out and endorsed Jeremy Silverstein for county DA against Jose Garza? Now, I know that'd be weird because Jeremy is not a Republican, but he's a young, handsome guy. He doesn't have, you know, those big old thick glasses like Garza does. You know, would that help?
No.
What?
I don't think so.
Come on.
I think Michael put it in good terms, and when he tweeted about it, I think that this race is currently one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in following politics. I mean, you have a guy who filed literally on the last day. Okay, he was recruited by Margaret Moore to file. I think he's a good lawyer. I've never met him. I've never talked to him, but he's competent. But he files the last day. Okay, he has no club endorsements. He has no elected endorsements. He is bankrolled in part by Republicans. And people are actually out there thinking like, oh, he might win this. He has no chance of winning this. And so Michael can speak to this more. I can't. I've had so many phone calls from people that are mostly Republican friends of mine of like, I think I'm going to support him. And I'm like, okay, but he's not going to win.
But
Yeah.
And this is the Democratic primary, correct?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is what I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Michael. I just want to throw this in there. You're seeing this a lot, though, and I actually wrote a tweet about this morning, where in a lot of cities, and I think this was where I read it was LA, that Republicans are doing what kind of Democrats do in Republican primaries, which is kind of picking the lesser of two evils, donating to them, getting behind them. You know, we did it here in the Houston mayor's race. You know, I guess they're doing it in your DA race there. We're seeing it in LA now. So maybe that's the move for Republicans in major cities who can't win otherwise. But go ahead.
It's a different animal. You're talking a mayor's race, which is, you know, in November, two Democrats against each other. This is a Democrat primary. You're talking to primary voters. These are the diehards. They're not, well, that's one issue, but no, I see everyone's talking about it. Everyone's sending me emails to donate. I get the same stuff. And I'm just like, I appreciate the desire to change things in Austin, but jumping into these elections that there's just no possibility of winning and spending a bunch of money, like go build something else with that money. Go do something else with that money that's more productive than like spending a bunch of money on this guy that has no shot, you know?
So let me ask, I mean, I think this is a good question for Adam and Michael, because there's a lot of people that believe, so we're talking about the Travis County DA race. We have Jose Garza. He's, you know, one of the Soros-backed DAs. We get it. It's awful. He's terrible. His policies suck. We all know that, right? But it's not a secret that his policies suck. Maybe people aren't paying attention. Maybe people don't care. I think that's pretty likely that the average Austin Travis County voter just has no fucking clue about who the DA is or what he does or anything like that. Maybe, but we're talking about diehard primary voters, right? So they're maybe a little bit more tuned in. Should I be walking away from this with the assumption that they agree with these policies?
I think so. I mean, I think people don't appreciate how far left the Democratic Party has moved here on police issues. This wasn't the case 10 years ago, and certainly not 20 years ago. But you have a group of an electorate that voted Garza in when he was expressly running and saying he's going to prosecute police. And I think your typical voter is Democratic voter is very open to that. And so I think that they are not upset about those cases as much as, of course, the Republicans are and some on Twitter are. And so the question then for Jeremy is, how do you run against him? And he can't run from the left against him. So you kind of have to run from the right, but you can't be a law and order candidate in the Democratic primary. So I've heard people hear him talk on the stump, and it's like a very jumbled message because I think they don't quite know what to say.
Yeah. Here's a way I've tried to explain it to people to really simplify it for the way I see it. If your picture of a police officer in your mind is Derek Chauvin, you're going to want less of that. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's as simple as I can put it. What the effort should be not to elect a different person. The effort should be to change the picture in people's minds of what a police officer is. That's where your energy should be focused. And the police and whatever, all these donors, they just throw money at a candidate and they've lost, I always say they've lost the culture on this issue. In Austin, as Adam says, people want and rightfully want reforms to police and the criminal justice system and who stopped that in a lot of cases has been police. And the picture of a police officer in their mind is this guy that's shooting the unarmed black man. So you have to change that dynamic in a cultural fight, not in an electoral fight, if you actually want to win on that issue.
Right.
So what do we do? We
Well,
get
as someone
police
who's
to
not in
shoot white guys.
Hmm?
What do we do? Get police to shoot white guys?
it ain't gonna happen.
What do you mean it's not going to happen? They shoot white guys.
As someone who's not in Austin, I'm not fully understanding. When he ran, was it running on like targeting prosecuting police or like?
Yeah, he's a Soros guy. He was financed by Soros. So he's been smart in that he's not gotten the national pub that Chesa Bolden got or the guy in Philly got. He doesn't do a ton of media, but he's got the Soros network fully behind him, and so he got in office. He indicted a bunch of cops. Then he had to drop a bunch of indictments because he couldn't make the case.
Okay.
Complete embarrassment. But right now, he's liked. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, he's among Democrats. People like him, and so I just think the whole thing's half baked that they're trying to do here.
Do you happen to know anything about the Harris County DA race? Because I'd love your take on that if you do.
Well, the only thing I know several things, but the one thing is the major donation is from a guy named Scott Freeman who gave $500,000 to the challenger.
Yeah, Chantier.
And so I know Scott really well, and Scott is a guy that does structured settlements, which is annuities and personal injury cases. He's not a lawyer. He just markets to it. So he knows a lot of very big dog lawyers. He's very close with a lot of big dog lawyers. Scott himself, in my personal opinion, is really not that political. So I'm very curious as to why he put $500,000 in this race. I don't believe it was just from him. I believe it was his money, of course, but there's something else going on there, which maybe you can tell me about, but I was amazed that he donated that kind of money.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not. I mean, I knew that he donated. I did not know who he was or where that really came from. So that's news to me. That's very interesting. I want to look into that one. Yeah, I mean, that race has been interesting so far. They had their first and I think only debate last night. Wasn't really anything to write home about. But it does seem as though Chantier has a lot of support because the progressives in Harris County don't like the DA because she's indicted Democrats. And so we'll see. I think it's going to be a tough race for her. I mean, it's a Democratic primary. She's indicted a very popular, the staff of the very popular Democratic county judge. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So do you think she's going to lose?
I think there's a very real risk of it. I don't know. I wouldn't, if the election were today, I'd probably still put money on her, but I do think there's a very real risk of it. She's losing a lot of the club endorsement, the Houston Black, I think it's the Houston Black American Democrats, the Houston GLBT caucus, the Tejano Democrats all endorsed her opponent. Like he's getting a lot of the endorsements. The county judges endorsed him. So he's got a large number of very big Houston Harris County endorsements. So I think it's a tough race for her. But
all right, let me ask you this. Let me ask Michael and Brad this as we sit here today in February 9th. Kirk Watson will be elected again in November of this year. Yes or no?
No.
Woo!
Because he's going to be elected in December.
Okay.
But he's going to win re-election, but it'll be in December runoff.
It'll be a runoff.
Mm-hmm.
But Brad, you don't think at all?
I mean, Michael just sort of threw a wrench in it, but I think I agree with Adam, and I mean, Adam hasn't said this yet, but I think this is what Adam thinks, that he's going to have a real hard time going up against a woman. And he's got two women going, and one of them Tovo, the other one Carmen Yanis, who I actually interviewed on my other podcast that'll be coming out this weekend and next week. I don't know. I think he's going to have a tough time. I think there's a lot of, the Republicans, the Verdon supporters, I don't know if they're not all Republicans, but whatever. The Verdon supporters that pushed him over the line last time, I don't think they're real happy with him. I don't think they're going to come out and support him again. I don't know who they support. Are they going to pull the same, bullshit like, oh, we got to do this because it's going to be worse if we don't? I don't know.
He was the only person that spoke up.
I spoke up too. What are you talking about?
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's it. I mean,
here's the difference.
I'm not giving a confident no, he's not going to win, but I don't think he's going to win.
I get that it's a presidential year, so I understand the woman dynamic, but Celia was more dynamic than either Kathy or Carmen by leaps and bounds, and she split the real estate money. Kathy and Carmen are full on NIMBYs, so Kirk's going to get all the Rika, Endeavor, Stratus, all that money's going to Kirk. Any that had defected to Celia in the last cycle is going to Kirk now, so he's going to have all the money. And Kathy, it actually reminds me a lot, although Kathy's more talented, of the 18 Adler Morrison race. I mean, it's not going to turn out exactly like that because it's not a presidential year and Kathy is more talented than Laura. But who are you going to support, Adam?
I mean, I'm probably not going to support anyone. I think that I don't like Watson personally, so I'm not going to support him. I don't like Tovo, and I don't even know these other people. I think that Occam's razor would hold that it's going to be a similar thing that he'll get to a runoff and win. But there's a part of me, and I talked to someone involved with this campaign who was adamant this is going forward. But I asked him a question, is there a chance he might not run? And there was a slight pause, enough that I caught for like 1/10 of a second. And he said, no, he's going to run. So there's part of me that wonders, he doesn't look good. He's old. Does he really want to do this another 4 years? He can win again and quit, but that's my Joe Biden theory for Watson, that he's not either.
Well, let's say that I think that's. I've been curious why has he not announced? Why is he not filed yet? I think that's kind of strange. So maybe he's pushing to the last second, or maybe either way. Maybe he's pushing the last second to say no, I'm not going to do it, or last second say this is all right, I'm in. If it's just, right now I guess the two big candidates would be Tovo and Giannis. I don't know. I don't remember the other guy's name. I know he announced this week, but who the fuck is that guy? Is it Tovo? Is it Giannis?
If Watson doesn't run, Celia's running.
Celia's already announced for the tax assessor collector.
But she's not elected till November. She could run again. She could run for mayor.
How? But don't you have to file? Don't you think she's going to miss the filing date if he waits till last?
She would bail from tax collector and run for mayor if it was a
tax collector is so much more prestigious, though. Why would she do that?
It's an easier job. You make more money.
As what? Tax assessor?
Oh yeah. I think that pays $250,000 for taxes. County.
Shit. God, why am I paying that? Whew. I want to run for that.
I think everyone would get it if Watson quits. Not everyone, but more people.
Well, can someone tell me what the big criticisms of him are? I mean, he's been in there, 2 years, is it?
He's been in there a year now.
A year, okay.
I'm upset that when he ran, he tried to play up this tough guy attitude, riding around on his motorcycle, his Harley, and I haven't seen him do that once since he got elected.
Get him out of there.
I like it.
The crazies have, the progressives have taken over almost every political institution in Austin, Texas, and they have forced Kirk to make decisions that the right and the center right don't like.
But
and that was a totally predictable. That was totally predictable. Anybody could have saw it coming. They did it to Steve Adler. The difference between Adler and Watson is Adler is like that wavy, wacky, inflatable tube man that you see on car things. He just blows in the wind. So all it took was a little wind to push him. Kirk has a little bit more backbone. But so people are mad at him because he's, sided with the progressive wing, which was obvious he was going to do that.
But Tovo was a part of that progressive wing. I mean, they defunding the police and the homeless camping ban. I think the progressive wing is probably going to go for, either Tovo or Giannis, but I think Tovo is maybe the known quantity for them, so they might support her more.
But she's a NIMBY. So many of those progressives are urbanists.
I don't know. Is she a NIMBY? I think she's saying the right things now, and if she's a NIMBY, I might vote for her. So maybe she's my gal. I don't know.
Probably. You hate housing, so wouldn't be surprised. Well, that was a great conversation of the mayor's race.
I have been described as anti-housing, and I don't know what that means. I've never met anybody that's anti-housing, but whatever.
Well, take a hard look in the mirror and you'll meet one real fast. I'll tell you that.
No, sir.
Okay. Our last topic, which I don't fully understand, so Brad's probably going to have to go into this, is why are billboards so awesome? And so I don't understand.
Well, you saw one of them in that commercial we played.
Oh,
Adam
yes.
Lowe is, wherever you go in Austin, Adam Lowe is watching you.
You know what? When I was driving into Austin a couple months ago, I did see a billboard. I did.
There we
Yes.
go.
Yep.
And I've been on Twitter telling candidates run billboards, and no one did. And all these consultants mock me. And I said, look, you can buy more Facebook ads or take a little of that money and get a billboard. And you know who first ran the billboard was Whitmer. He ran billboards. Then he won. Then we have Sean Theory. Miss Sean Theory has a billboard up now. She just tweeted about it today. And then there was somebody else with a billboard, Mitch Little, the lawyer, the Paxton lawyer. So I feel I am bringing back billboards to Texas politics, like the LBJ era. Everyone will have a billboard very soon. And I just tell you, they work. They raise name ID.
Whitmire had a billboard when he was running for mayor out here on 610. Massive billboard. You could see it out going to and from work every single day. And the number of instances that people see that going to and from work, I think it, especially if they don't know anybody in a race, I would think that plays a huge role.
So I'm going to do a billboard for Mackenzie Kelly on Anderson Mill in her district, re-elect CMK, the pride of district. What district is she in? 9 or something?
6.
6. And I'm going to have her, she has a service dog now, a emotional support dog. We'll have the emotional support dog on the billboard, and it'll be a big moment,
Do you want to, would you want to do a billboard for the BCM podcast while you're at it? I mean,
that'd be cool.
Maybe right outside of South by Southwest or something so everybody can see it, man. Be great.
So you're supporting Mackenzie?
I'm supporting Mackenzie. That's going to be a very tough race. I'm very worried.
It is. I know. I told her
losing River Place is not good.
Yeah, not good. And it's presidential year. And I told her, I probably shouldn't reveal the text message, but I said they could run a wet blanket that has a Democrat next to her name, and it's going to give her a run for her money.
Ouch.
And Democrats are gearing up to get that seat back. So we'll see what happens.
Was she redistricted or something? Is it less safe than it was?
We did redistricting, and it was the most conservative district, kind of northwest Austin, and they pulled out River Place, they pulled River Place out of 6 and put it into 10, and that made her district a little bit more blue. And Williamson County is getting more and more blue by the day.
It sounds like if you take River Oaks out of that, makes sense. Get it. Well, we're over an hour. This was a great conversation. Brad, Michael, did I miss anything that we wanted to cover with Adam?
No.
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
That was great, guys. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
just scheming on what charity I'm going to make him give his $100 to. It's going to be
Aliens.
It's going to be
Aliens.
Adam. It's going to be painful. I'm just warning you now.
All right, let me know.
The Alien Relief Fund. That'll be good. Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. We appreciate it. It was great to meet you. Hope to actually meet you in person one day.
Yeah, look forward to it. All right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks, Adam.
You too.
What the fuck was that, Charles? You hope to meet Adam in person one day? Why are you so big now?
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
I fixed it for you. What do you mean you want to meet Adam in person? You and I have never met in person. You've never once said that to me.
Well, do I have to? We talk every week, so it doesn't like I don't know the next time I'm going to talk to Adam. So hope to meet you in person one day, Brad.
Let's invite him to the BCM annual dinner that we're going to be doing here.
Oh, it's a great
Charles
idea.
is in town.
Invite Charles to the annual dinner? I don't know, man.
We should do it when I'm in town for South by Southwest.
Oh, Adam.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we should tell people where we will be so that we can, get some paparazzi. Yeah.
Yeah. We certainly will.
Yeah,
All right. Well, this was a great conversation. Is there anything for the good of the order before I give our whole rundown?
The good of the order? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that means
I know what it means. Relax. I read books. Come on.
I watch Tucker Carlson.
I'm not as big of a sycophant as you, but I think Putin's okay. There's one thing I haven't said this show yet, and I need to say it every show. It was brought up earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow. I want to say thank you to our favorite fan, Mrs. Blaine, for listening and tuning in. And it's great that she does that, and I hope that she continues to, even if she thinks that I'm some sort of, Trump, whatever, awful things that she thinks about me. I still love her for watching. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure she appreciates that. And I'll make sure she gets that message, she'll get it anyway. So yes, but thank you guys for tuning in. As always, Michael Searle ATX over there, Brad Swale at Brad Swale on Twitter, and I'm sure other platforms, Charles Blaine. Make sure you like, share, comment on the BCM podcast. Give us some suggestions for topics. If you hated what we talked about or loved what we talked about, please let us know. Share it. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, wherever else we are. Make sure you share it with your friends, your family, your loved ones, your hated ones, whoever. Make sure you get it out there. Thank you guys for tuning in, and see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.